Evening, and welcome to the Capitola Planning Commission meeting for Thursday, July 17th, 2025. This meeting is open to the public with both in-person attendance at the City of Capitola Council Chambers at 420 Capitola Avenue, and remote viewing is also possible. The Planning Commission and staff are attending in person, and members of the public wanting to offer public comment need to be present. The public can live stream the meeting on the city's website, on YouTube, or on Zoom following the link on the meeting agenda. As always, this meeting is cablecast live on Spectrum Communications Cable TV Channel 8 and AT&T UVerse Channel 99, and is being recorded to be rebroadcast on the following Mondays and Fridays at 1 p.m. on Spectrum Channel 71 and Spectrum Channel 25. Recording the meeting will also be available on the city's website after the meeting. Our technician tonight is Paloma Bobadilla. As a reminder, please turn off your cell phones during the meeting so we don't have any interference. Can we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Howard?
Here.
Commissioner Q?
Here.
Vice Chair Christensen? Chair Esty?
Here. Can you all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you. Thank you. Okay, item number 2 on our agenda tonight, additions and any deletions to the agenda. Are there any changes?
Staff received additional materials for items 6A and 6B, one email received for each item, and they have been included in the agenda packet.
Okay, thank you. All right, moving on to item number 3, oral communications. Please review the section on how to provide comments to the Planning Commission for instructions. Oral communications allows time for members of the public to address the Planning Commission on any consent item on tonight's agenda or any topic within the jurisdiction of the city that is not on the public hearing section of the agenda. Members of the public may speak up for 3 minutes unless otherwise specified by the chair. Individuals may not speak more than once during oral communications. All speakers must address the entire legislative body and not be permitted to engage in dialogue with the staff. Is there anybody in the public that would like to provide some communications at this point? Please step up to the podium there.
Not sure I understood all the rules, but hopefully I can speak on item A, the Regional Commission Park Avenue Bluff.
No, that's on the agenda. You'll have time to speak later once we bring it up.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. No worries. That gets confusing to the public all the time. Anybody else for an item that's not on the agenda? Okay, let's move on to item 4, starting with the Planning Commission and the staff. Any comments from the Planning Commission?
No comments.
Okay, and staff?
Yes, I wanted to inform you that the Cliff Drive Resiliency Project, we're going to have a community meeting on August 12th to update the community on the plans. And then also that project involved a Coastal Commission grant in which we are responsible for updating our local coastal program as well as our long-range planning for coastal documents, the land use program. So I will be presenting that as well and publishing draft updates to those, and they will follow. I'll bring those to the Planning Commission probably at our September meeting. Oh, and that meeting is in the community room next door, and it starts at 6 p.m., August 12th.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, moving on, item 5 is the consent calendar. All matters listed under consent calendar are considered by the Planning Commission to be routine and will be enacted by one motion in the form listed below. There will be no separate discussion on these items prior to the time the Planning Commission votes on the action unless the Planning Commission requests specific items to be discussed for separate review. Items pulled for separate discussion will be considered in the order listed on the agenda. Are there any items that we prefer to remove from the consent calendar? No. Okay. All right. Having none, can we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Howard?
Here.
Commissioner Q? Chair Esty.
Aye. Okay, thank you. Moving on, item 6, public hearings. Public hearings are intended to provide an opportunity for the public discussion of each item listed as a public hearing. Procedure is as follows. There's a staff presentation at the beginning, Planning Commission questions of the staff. Item 3 is public comment. Planning Commission deliberation next, and then a decision and a vote on the particular items. The first item, item A, is the regional RTC Park Avenue Bluff fence permit request.
Thank you. One moment while I get that loaded. All right. Good evening, Commissioners. Chair Esty. So as was just discussed, this is an application for a coastal development permit and fence permit. It's in the Community Facility Zoning District. And this is to construct a fence along the area shown above. The area the property is owned by the Santa Cruz County Regional Transportation Commission, or also known as the RTC. These are a couple images of the area as it looks today. The first one on the left taken from Park Avenue, and the other one taken from a portion of the corridor that would be obstructed by the fence line. Although fences generally do not require coastal development permits or CDPs, this project is, as can be seen above, located within close proximity to a coastal bluff, which lowers the threshold for when coastal permits are required, and there are no applicable exemptions in this case, so that's the nature and purpose and requirement of the CDP in this case. This is the provided site plan by the RTC. In blue, you can see the approximately 1,200 linear foot fence, proposed fence line. It follows an existing clearing area or volunteer trail. And we have here, it's highlighted so that you can see the proposed signage locations. There is existing signage out there today, but that would be replaced with new signage just because the existing is starting to fade and worth replacement. So these photos were also taken from the RTC recently. The one on the top is looking east or towards Aptos, and it's near the terminus of this fence line. The other one is the opposite. It's near the other end towards City Hall, looking west, very close to Grove Lane. The dashed lines there indicate the approximate location of where this fence line would go. Like I said, it would follow the existing clearing areas, generally to the coastal side of it. So some of that clearing would generally be on the inland side. The fence line itself, there were 3 provided concepts for this fence design, all of which would be standing 4 feet above the grade. And the primary difference between these 3 different concepts is at least visually, is going to be the spacing of the posts and the horizontal rails, as well as the primary materials used. This selection would be determined at a future date by the RTC, and generally the considering factors here are the cost of materials and cost of installation and the longevity of the products themselves. These are 3 examples that the RTC provided to stand in for those concepts. The first one on the top left is a natural wood look, and the one to the top right is going to be a more treated wood product, and then the bottom right is going to be a wood-style prefabricated concrete. The bottom example is a coastal line fence, so yeah, I don't remember where that one is, but that is pretty close to, I think, what they were thinking. I do have additional slides related to the findings, if that is something that the Planning Commission would like to discuss. But the primary purpose of this is public safety, and there is, just related to one of the comments we had today, if I haven't, There is a provision in the Coastal Act related to when coastal access and coastal resources can be considered in the context of, or safety can take a primacy role, and it's intentionally not supposed to be outweighed when it comes to determining whether there's going to be an obstruction. So one of those clauses is saying that public access public safety can be factored into things like fences. This was a consideration that came up several years ago in 2021 related to the 7.5 mile long trail and fence line that the Coastal Commission reviewed. And that did actually specifically discuss volunteer trails and fence line. But unless there's other questions, the staff is recommending approval of this project with the attached conditions and findings.
So if I understood you right, safety is not, does not have supremacy over access. Access is the...
It can be the other way around. Correct.
And then, I walked it with you, and I'm really mixed on this one because it's a...
I don't think your mic's on.
There it is. I'm sort of torn on this because it's a 1,200 or 1,100 foot long fence, 4 feet tall, and the objective is to keep people away from the cliff. But it does take a big chunk of it inland. You go, 30 or 40 feet inside. Was there any discussion around making it, intermittent? Parts of it would be blocking the bluffs for safety, and parts of it would still be open where you could walk and see the beautiful bay.
If I understand you correctly, to have openings staggered throughout it, I believe that would defeat the intention behind putting this up, which is meant to be more of a stronger awareness barrier. It's clearly not designed to stop people that are determined, but it is designed to be much more visible than, say, signage. And that is what the RTC has told us, is that signage generally by itself is not sufficient to accomplish safety mitigation.
So I guess that does go back to the notion of how unsafe is it? I know it's a huge cliff, but how many people have fallen off there or jumped off or had problems over the last 30 years? I was a kid walking on that cliff, 40 years ago.
I don't have specific numbers along Park Avenue. There have been at least 3 or 4 fatalities in the past 10 years in Santa Cruz County, specifically on coastal bluffs, at least one of which occurred at Park Avenue. Another one occurred just north of Hooper Beach, I believe, and those were both in the past 10 years.
I know there have been multiple incidents along the bluffs in Capitola. I don't have an exact number for you, but this is definitely, the application is based on safety and also the undercut that exists along that bluff. In choosing the path, they went on the coastal side of the inward path, so there's still a path there. It is private property, so in going out and doing the tour with the RTC and learning about this, it's really hard. It was really difficult for me to look at these images and really understand why it's going so far inward. But when you're looking at the images, there's a real steepness along certain areas and when you go, they don't want people to have access to that lower pathway, because as you can see how close it comes to that point. And I think they've had 2 different major incidents of losing a lot of erosion on that site in 2022, 2023. So it is a safety issue.
So from my understanding that this is RTC property, so it is private property in that sense. And with putting up this fence, it's more of protecting public safety because there has been incidences. The precedent has been set in the past on that. But my question is there any impact on the actual legal access at all? Or public access?
Are you asking if there's an impact to legally established access? No.
Thank you.
So my understanding that 2 people have fallen off the bluff roughly at the bottom of that blue curve there from that area of the cliff, rough where the erosion has been the worst in the last few years. And those two fatalities, I think, were within the last 3 years. I want to be clear because we've said it differently. I think the fence is going on the ocean side of the pathway, right? Not the inland side.
Correct.
And the bike bumps that are there, the kids love those things. They are not affected by this fence except maybe one of the last ones?
They would be impacted and removed as a result of this.
Oh, they're going to take them out. Well, that's going to...
I should add too, there is at least one RTC staff person available. I believe that we have Riley Gebrant available on Zoom. And I don't know if
but just before we
Yeah.
go there, none of those paths, see those paths to the right-hand side of this thing, none of those provide the community with access to the beach, right?
Correct. That towards the northern end or towards the right end, the cliff starts to come inland, which is why the pathway gets tighter along the corridor, the rail line itself. And where it terminates is basically where the area along Park Avenue, more or less that grade disappears. And in order to safely go further, you would have to get back on Park Avenue and go towards New Brighton.
Right. So when we talk about coastal access, we're preventing people from walking onto a cliff that's about 70 feet above the ocean and preventing them from looking out at whatever's going on in the ocean in front of them. That's about it, right?
The view shed, yes.
Okay. So we move them back 20 feet from the edge of the bluff, roughly. Maybe it's hard to tell. I can't remember. I've been there many times, but it varies a little bit.
It varies substantially.
Chair Esty, would you mind if we allowed Riley to
sure,
speak from the RTC as well? Because he'd be helpful with some of the questions and answers.
Good evening, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. So I'm available for questions. There's been several questions going back and forth. If you have specific questions, feel free to speak them and I'll be able to answer them.
Well, okay, I'll start with the question about the kids and the bikes. Those jumps are going to be bulldozed out, they're flattened out.
Yeah, in order to put the fence into the alignment along at that kind of more inwardly volunteer trail, to place the fence, there's not a way around impacting those bike pump track jumps.
Yep. Okay, thank you. No other questions?
No, again, I'm really mixed on this. I think the RTC needs to get some goodwill from the community somewhere, and the continued, whether it's Highway 1 widening has been a disaster or the rail trail has been a disaster with public commentary and whatnot, and now just another little strike at good old Mid-County. It is what it is. I think safety, should be the primary driver, but it's sort of tone deaf timing-wise.
I will add one thing to that point, which is we had a bluff retreat analysis done on this area, and two factors came into where the alignment of the fence were placed. One being where physically the topography of the land would make the most sense to put the fence. And as the director Hillary mentioned, there's two elevations out on the bluff there. One is the lower bluff, which is close, or lower elevation, which is close to the bluff edge. And then if you go inland, a varying distance, 10, 15, 20 feet, there's a rise in the elevation. And we selected placing the fence at the top of that rise to keep people away from the area that was and where the bluff erosion's occurring and where there's unstable bluffs. And second is the bluff retreat work that was done. And in order to place the fence at a location where it wouldn't be negatively impacted by future bluff erosion, we selected a location as shown on the plan there. Obviously, it's not going to last for 100 years at that location, but it would provide a location where the fence would be able to be situated for a number of years before any potential erosion would occur that would undermine the new fence.
So one last question is, so we put the fence up, it blocks the trails that people have walked on for a long time. We redirect them where? Are they going to walk on the railroad track? Are they going to go back into the street? Or are we going to put a little path next to the fence that they can walk down?
So to that point, we haven't invited anybody to walk this property as a public access area. If you refer back to the staff presentation, there are a number of signs out on that location that have been there for a number of years, decades, that are no trespassing signs and unstable bluff signs. And yet, people choose to walk on the property. What we've done is placed the fence at a location where should people choose to walk on this area, despite the no trespassing signs, they would still be able to use that more inwardly trail alignment, but they would not be able to access the trail that is closest to the bluffs. And there's some photos that I believe are included in the application that actually show where the erosion is encroaching several inches into the actual trail itself and is undermining the actual trail. And if you walk out there and you look at the undermining, you begin to get really nervous and you don't want to walk that trail anymore. So it's really not a safe location for people to be accessed anymore.
Okay. No further questions. We will go to part 3, which is public comment. So we request anybody from the public who would like to make a comment to step up to the microphone there. You'll have 3 minutes to make your speech. Yeah, well, go ahead. Whatever order you want. Just form a line if there's more than a couple people. Thank you.
Okay, is this on? Yeah. Okay, you can hear me. My name is Bob Hickman. I've been a resident here for, over 25 years and been here my entire life. But that Coast Bluff Trail, something I've walked many, many times. I realize there's some encroaching things. I have a couple comments. One, RTC wants to take ownership of all of this. Why are they not stepping up and keeping the fire danger down? They own this trail. They want to keep everybody off. Why? We get the goats once a year. Okay? That's it. Walk out there right now. Look at all the weeds going up. We got all these people getting their home insurance canceled. RTC needs to step up and start maintaining control of the weeds on what they call their property. 2, that bench that's out there, that's nowhere near any erosion on the cliff. Why do they want to remove that? Why does that have to be removed? That's a beautiful bench to sit on and enjoy the beautiful views. The cliff, they can move the fence closer to the cliff so that people can still enjoy the views. If I look at where they want to put that fence line, they're pulling it way in close to the railroad tracks. We're going to lose all of that. I'm sorry. I can't go along with this. If they put that fence up there, people are going to break it down and still go walk along the bluff because that's one of the most beautiful views we have in this county. We can look all the way across Moss Landing, Monterey, everywhere else. It's a nice local trail. We need to keep it. We need to figure out how to get the fence line closer to the bluffs and not near the railroad tracks. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening. I'm Terry Thomas. I'm a 52-year resident on Park Avenue and a former planning commissioner. I am amazed that the RTC thinks this proposed fencing is a good idea. Why would they possibly want to spend their scarce funds on a 1,300-foot-long fence on Park Avenue Bluff? They have sufficient expenses already. If it's for safety reasons, after 52 years of living here and walking on the bluff, the only people who ever that we know of, whoever fell off the cliff were those who wanted to. A lot of the bluff we used to walk on is no longer there, but we never fell off. Folks have been walking along the bluff for many years, long before us. The railroad company never considered it a hazard. This is the first time anyone has felt the need to restrict access. If you have used a property for a considerable period of time, shouldn't you be able to continue to use it? Especially if it's zoned a community facility district. If a 4-foot fence is built, people who want to continue walking in the area will just climb over the fence and continue on their way. There won't be much in the way of patrolling, as the police department rarely even patrols the speeders on Park Avenue. The building and staging of this fence project will most likely cause more harm and bluff erosion than leaving the area alone. Please say no to this folly. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments from the public? Okay, hearing none, back to the commission for deliberation. Anybody want to go first?
Happy to go first. So I appreciate the comments from the community, and I understand that after having something for so long, it's hard to have something taken away, but putting public safety and, liabilities, that's really difficult for me to go against right there, just knowing what the potential is. So I'm inclined to approve this.
I'm the opposite. I'm disinclined. And I think, again, my ire comes from this notion that the RTC does not, they own the land legally, but they're a public agency. We own the land as a community, and we have rights and demands. But the exercise that they've gone through is put the fence up, it's safe. It's really hard to argue against that. Great, it's safe. But we're not children. We can behave properly and not fall off the cliff. At the same time, it sure would be nice if they came with olive branches of, you can access it on the other side of the fence. They won't even do that. You can't even access the property at all, right? They say they don't want there. So I'm disinclined. If they had come to us and said, would put a trail right next to it, or would finish the rail trail faster, or something to get us moving in that regard, I'd vote for it. But I'm not going to vote for it.
Okay, thank you. My comments are, basically, I do appreciate all your comments about public access and the ability to do this, but this was my running path for many years on the way down to New Brighton Beach. But my observation, particularly taking my 3-year-old grandson there almost every day for the last couple of years, as he's grown and as the bluff has eroded, it is, to me, it is more and more of a safety hazard. The decay of that upper sediment area, which layer, which is about 20 feet thick, seems to be growing. I'm not sure why, if it's the storms have been worse in the last few years or not, but it's very unstable. And I do worry, and I've always worried about the lack of restrictions on certain parts of that bluff. And the location of the fence is, it's debatable, but I do agree with the geologists in terms of, I've been looking at the bluff and other parts of the area here, and the geology is such that the erosion rate is increasing and has over the last 10, 20 years for whatever reason. So I am actually inclined to say we have to prioritize safety over access to that cliff. Any other comments at the moment? Okay.
Excuse me, do we have the ability to ask them to relook at putting a one lane walking path next to the fence? Is that out of the question?
We can deny the request, and then part of our comments back on the denial is suggested changes. Yes, that's our avenue. But other than that, we can't. There's a permit that we have to make a motion. We have to decide on what we're going to do tonight. Okay, can we take this to a vote then, please?
Commissioner Howard.
We need a motion.
Sorry, you're right. Can we have a motion to vote on this item?
I'll have a motion to approve application 250056 and approve the project based on the attached conditions and findings for approval.
I vote no.
No, you have to.
Twice, yeah, I second the motion.
Second the motion? Okay, now we can have a vote. Thank you.
Commissioner Howard,
No.
Commissioner Q,
Aye.
Chair Esty.
Aye. Okay. Thank you for your comments to the public. I think that's very useful for our deliberations here. Okay, next item B on the consent, or excuse me, item B on the public hearings is 302 Grand Avenue. And staff, I assume you have a presentation for that.
Yes, we do. Thank you. Okay. So this is back to a more typical project. We have a single-family development in a single-family zoning district. This is for 302 Grand Avenue. It includes a design permit, coastal development permit, and variance requests to demolish an existing single-family residence, save for the detached garage, and then to construct a new single-family residence in its place. So this is the home as it appears today. This was taken from the corner of Saxon Avenue, behind the road closure line, on the corner of Saxon and Grand Avenue, the former Grand Avenue roadway, now the Grand Avenue pathway, which itself has also been closed along this stretch going towards Aptos. This home was, up until somewhat recently, this background was in the staff report, but it was up until recently listed as a potential significant resource, historic resource. It was reviewed through a city contracted architectural historian, and it was formally delisted, I believe earlier this year, which was, Planning Commission was notified of at that time. And it was formally struck from that list, which does free up the ability to have it demolished. This is the site plan with a few highlights that I'll just go over right now. The green area is just the first floor footprint. The two olive trees, which are going to come up with the variance requests, are the green circles. And then that red line is the geologic hazard overlay, which was established by the geologic consultants working on this project. That line is actually about, I don't know offhand, but about 50 feet back from the top of bluff, just so you know, and towards the Grand Avenue, or where it says coastal bluff, that is considered for zoning purposes the front, and Saxon Avenue is not considered the front, it's considered the street side. Okay, and we have the elevations for you. This is along the, on the top is the exterior side along Saxon Avenue, but functionally it does work similar to the front. And then the rear. And we have here the bluff face with two small upper story decks in purple, and the bottom is the east sides of the side facing the only other adjacent residence. This project design has been heavily influenced by the existing home, which you may be able to tell from that first image, namely the reuse of dormers and the asymmetrical gable roof seen on the bottom image. It's proposed clad in fiber cement shingle and multi-pane windows and composition roof. And I'm going to go ahead and get into the variance discussion here for the remainder of the presentation. This one is somewhat unusual in that there are actually quite a few unique circumstances at play. But there are several requests for variances. The first of which is to reduce the minimum required number of parking spaces from 2 spaces to 1. The Planning Commission may recall that last year we passed a number of code amendments that involved the amount of required parking for single-family developments. And for this project, notably, that removes the requirement for covered parking, although this project does still propose proposed to keep covered parking just with a single space on site. So that's the first one. The second one is to reduce the street side setback. That is for the garage footprint, which I'll have up in a moment. And you can see the dimensions that they're going from the code requirement to the proposed setting. And so that would go from 10 feet to 2 feet, 11 inches. And then the last one is for reducing the rear setback, and that is also for that garage. So these are the list of findings that need to be made in order to approve variance requests. Staff had reviewed this, each one in its staff report. I'll be covering and focusing on findings A and E, which are often some of the more difficult findings to positively make. And those are underlined above for the unique circumstances applicable to a project and as they relate to the request themselves, as well as whether or not the variance request would constitute a grant of special privilege. So up here, I'm just going to go through the major points of unique circumstance. The first of which is related to the ability to site on-site parking or access to on-site parking. So it is, although it was originally designed and treated as a corner lot, including with its current setbacks, Grand Avenue is completely inaccessible. As mentioned, it's been abandoned as a roadway. Further, the end of Saxon Avenue has been closed. So you can see a line near the bottom of the image and where it says no vehicles past this point. There is actually, right on that line, there's a permanent fence line obstructing vehicles from going past that point. So this property already has actually much more limited direct site access from a roadway than would first appear. Second reason is that the applicants are, for their desire to keep 2 mature olive trees. One's in the front, in between the garage and the residence, and the other is right behind the garage. Relocating the garage or reorienting the home would likely require the removal of one or both trees. And the third reason is that in line with the abandonment of Grand Avenue, many of the properties along the bluff and next to was no exception were underwent lot line adjustments to create flag lots on the now access restricted lots. So the subject property gave up about 10 feet of its depth so that the lot next to it could regain vehicle access. And that space right there is the equivalent of a vehicle width. So that right there actually takes away that what would otherwise be its requirement. And the last one is related to the geologic hazard and sort of coastal policy. So the line you can see there again in red is about in line with the first story setback for development. However, I'd like to note that this policy sets a minimum, and projects could be set further back, and that would be seen as even more in support of the spirit of the law and our coastal implementation. And having a garage further towards the rear or further inland is in spirit supporting that approach. So that's another thing to consider when looking at these variance requests. So that was for finding A, and for finding E, where we evaluated whether or not this could be considered a grant of special privilege, and we combined the different variances here to look at aspects of on-site parking capacity and feasibility and the irregularity around it, as well as the setbacks of developments. And what we found, we surveyed from Central Avenue to Livermore Avenue, and that's 18 properties, including the subject property. And what we found is that the majority of them have one or more irregularities or nonconformities relating to the configuration of their parking or nonconformity of their parking and their developments, including flag lots, nonconforming rear or side setbacks, on-site parking, limited on-site parking, or substandard parking availability. So those orange arrows indicate where properties have deficiencies related to the minimum required rear or side setbacks, which may be for the homes, their garages, or both. And the yellow diamonds indicate properties with deficiencies related to the minimum number of required parking spaces or where there are flag lots and substandard parking dimensions. So there's been a clear developmental pattern along the bluffs related to these constraints of coastal erosion is our conclusion here. So this would definitely not be a grant of special privilege. And with that, staff is recommending approval based on the attached conditions and findings. And I am available for any questions.
Do we have the owner or the owner's representative here to?
We do.
My name is Derek Van Alstein, and we'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
The mic may not be on.
Mike is, yeah, not on.
Hello, hello. My name is still Derek Van Alstein, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have. And I'd like to start this by saying we've talked to the neighbor who had some maybe you should take. Okay, go ahead.
Hi, my name's Jenny. I work for Derek. We received the email with the concern from the neighbor. Would you like us to speak to that?
To you.
Okay. I contacted both our civil engineer, Ramsey Engineering, and Rock Solid, who's our soils engineer. There was some concern from a neighbor about the demolition and the building of the new structure and how it might affect the bluff. And so is it up here? Rock Solid, the soils engineer, recommended that they can do a static roll when compacting so it doesn't rattle the houses. And in her report, she's recommended piers, and so that also requires minimal compaction and a minimal use of a compactor in general. So using light equipment and taking a lot of care and consideration on the property. It's partially why we, not only did the city require it, but our concerns with bringing in a civil engineer for the planning commission portion of it, knowing that drainage was a really big concern along the bluff. And then now, obviously, we've had a sloughing of the bluff recently, right? That's got everyone concerned. So when engaging in this project, we will be consulting with all of our engineers to make sure that we're doing everything we can to be very mindful of that bluff and going about it as delicately as possible to keep it in place as long as possible because just like the neighbors, our clients want to be able to enjoy their house for as long as possible.
So just as you brought it up, what's the plan for drainage off the property then?
So the drainage is on the Saxon side, and it is a seepage pit, essentially, that channels the water to the Saxon side and then ponds down so that there's no drainage towards the bluff at all.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, do we have any public comment about this?
Hi, my name is Russell Simpkins. I just have a couple questions for planning staff, if that's okay. The first is the project was, or the property was delisted from the historical list. Was there any requirement that the aesthetic of the building, the existing building, was upheld, or is that purely a preference from the architect?
If you could just ask us all your questions, and then we'll ask the chair if we can respond.
Okay, so that's one. And the second is the historian use public knowledge? I'd like to know who the historian was, if that is. And that's it.
Okay, I think that's in the public's interest to answer both of those. We have answers to them.
So the no and yes are the short answers. For the first question, the applicant was not required to design this rebuild in the same architectural style or design since the original was delisted. So that did free them up, and it's my understanding that the owners who acquired this property did actually really like the original style of the home. And before it was delisted, there was talks about whether or not to renovate it, but it was seen as optimal to start fresh if possible. But they were looking at alternatives if that was not possible. Second, yes, one of the historians that we use is I mean, they all are would be public knowledge, but it's Seth Bergstein was used for this project, and that was contracted to the city.
Thank you, Sean. Okay, any other
That
public?
document is available if you'd like to review it at our office.
Any other public comments? Okay, hearing none, let's bring it back for deliberations. Any comments from the commissioners?
I just want to first say thank you for reaching out to your neighbors in general, because like a lot of projects typically go without taking that into consideration. The variances were kind of tight for me, but after looking at the design of the project and how much they've had to give up the flag lot, it makes sense why those variances would be justified.
Yeah, I would agree with that. This lot's kind of an odd one. Unfortunately, because of the erosion of the bluff at this location, they've had to put the flag lot driveway in behind them. So that makes sense. There actually is quite a bit of parking in front of their garage and to the side, so people won't be on the street in terms of parking. So, and I think the design is actually pretty good. It's pretty close to the original conceptual design of the house. I think you guys have done a very good job of that. So thank you. Okay, do we have a motion on this one?
Thank you. Yeah, I'd like to go ahead and provide a motion to approve 302 Grand Avenue application and approve the project based on the additional conditions and findings for approval.
And I'll second.
Okay, can we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Howard,
Yes.
Commissioner Q,
Aye.
Chair Esty.
Aye. Congratulations. And we'll move on to item C on the public hearings, and this is 4820 Opal Cliff Drive. It's a permit for a pin pier wall bluff retreat mitigation. So everything tonight's about the bluff, it seems like. Let's have a staff presentation on this one, please.
Good evening, Chair SD and Commissioners. I'll be with you in just a moment while I get the report ready here. Okay. So this item before you, 4820 Opal Cliff Drive, is got two entitlements associated with it, a coastal development permit and a conditional use permit. And it's a proposed pin pier wall that is in direct response to some significant erosion event that ties back to the 2022-2023 storm surge and significant wave activity that caused a state of emergency countywide. So the proposal here is to put an on-site pin pier wall to protect the existing condominium building. This building was built in 1975 with 12 condo units. And next slide, same slide, but just wanted to highlight the area of work, just so you get an understanding of where there's a row of pin piers tied together with a surface grade beam. Where this is happening is in the side yard. This is an area of about 15 to 18 feet between the property line and the condo building. And while the project itself is pretty significant effort in terms of construction and material. In the end, there's really not an above grade portion. The finished product of this project will really be basically at grade or a few inches above in terms of its visibility with just the top of the grade beam. So I'm going to go in order. There's basically three components to this structure. I'm going to go in the order that the project contractor will be phasing the work. And so they're going to start with 28 piers. And these will be drilled with a drill rig. They're at 4 feet centers. They go down about 47 feet into the bedrock level. And they are 6.5 feet from the property line, which is shown in black here. And then it's all tied together with a 2 foot by 2 foot cube grade beam. So these would be tied together with rebar out the top of the piers. And this would be a poured and cast in place grade beam. And then the final piece is 18 tiebacks, and these are at 6 feet on center. They tie the whole system together and descend underneath the building at tension. They're 58 feet long, and they descend at a 25-degree angle. So the city certainly doesn't have in-house expertise to review every aspect of this, so we did contract with a geotechnical engineering firm, Cotton & Shires, out of Los Gatos, to provide some technical feedback on the reports that the applicant provided. They provided 3 primary comments: increasing the depth of the pin piers. The applicant responded with doing that. They recommend increasing the inclination angle. It was originally 10 to 20 degrees, but now is 25 degrees across the board for all the tiebacks. And then they asked for a little more detail from the contractor in terms of mobilization on what is getting close to an edge of a bluff and what type of equipment would be used. And the contractor provided some means, methods, and phasing details, which is attached to your report. All of that was provided back to Cotton & Shires, and basically I can say that the applicant responded in kind to every comment, and there are no remaining items to be addressed. Similarly with the Coastal Commission doesn't have direct involvement, but we did communicate with their staff because the proximity of this project to their jurisdiction. They did provide a technical memo asking for the piers to be relocated from their original location, which was 2 feet from the property line. They wanted them to be 8 or 10 feet away from the building, and they are now relocated to about 9.5 feet away from the building. So again, the applicant responded to that comment in full. When it comes to what is the city's authorities, we have a policy that talks about when these types of structures are permitted for beach and bluff erosion. This is out of the city's local coastal program, and just highlighted here. So I'll read more or less the first sentence, and I'll get to the summary. So shoreline structures such as seawalls, revetments, groins, and breakwaters shall be permitted only to serve coastal dependent uses and to protect existing development. So existing development is a really specific 2 words here, and it really refers to when the Coastal Act was adopted. So this structure predating the Coastal Act meets that definition of existing development, and so is entitled to these type of structures. And so it meets this policy standard. This is my last slide, and it really kind of pulls, I think, the whole story together of why the applicant is pursuing this option. And I believe they have communicated intentions to pursue other options, but those are on longer term timelines that are more complicated. I highlighted the existing building in purple, and if I use the pointer here, so up coast, we've got a condo building, 4,800. They have a shotcrete wall up at the shoulder of the bluff and a seawall down at the toe. Then you've got this small peninsula piece of the bluff. And then you can see the area that is been eroding, and then you go down coast and you've got another shotcrete wall with a toe. So the intensified area of erosion in this small region, this all kind of works together, is really centered on the lot that's just one lot down coast at 4840. And so the motivation behind this is to do what they can do on the pieces of the property they control. I think in the long term, they'd like a more long-term solution like the lots that flank, but it requires not only permits directly through the Coastal Commission, but coordination with an adjacent property owner. So this project keeps them on property and is what they can do for now in a predictable timeline. So with that, I'd be happy to take questions, and I do believe the HOA representative is here and would like to address the commission.
Let's do questions from staff first.
Yeah, so just hearing from your presentation, thank you for that. If you can go back one slide. So that plot right there, are you saying that's just a short-term solution that's in a reasonable timeline so they can reinforce that until something more permanent comes along, like the adjacent properties for?
Yeah, so the yellow is not the subject property, to be clear. The purple is the subject property.
Right.
But the area where the erosion event occurred is here. Okay, are you seeing my pointer? And then where the proposed wall is here. So it's on property for the building in purple there. The more typical type of longer term erosion protection is like what you see on the upslope or up coast, down coast flanking, but those require permits from the Coastal Commission. It's a years long process.
So are there any, so this is a big project with probably big equipment to drill 47 feet down into bedrock. What are there restrictions on, and that Opal Cliff Drive is, or not Opal Cliff, but East Cliff is pretty crowded, especially these days with all the traffic congestion. Do we restrict that somehow? How are they going to get all that stuff in there to drill these holes? Especially not the straight down ones, but the tieback one.
Yeah, so we did, there is an attachment in your staff report. So they talk about a drill rig that has an 8-foot wide track. They talk about sequencing of moving that drill rig strategically. So they cluster and do every other pier at a time. So they're minimizing the movement of that piece of equipment. But the staging is all proposed from the parking lot itself.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
They're not using street access then. Except
the staff report, we did talk a little bit about there'll probably be some loss of vegetation, and there's a condition of approval to provide a landscape plan at the.
Yeah, so I saw that. That was good. Okay, thank you. Okay, representative from the HOA, you want to come up and speak, please?
So my name is John Kazam. I'm on the HOA board. So Brian, actually those pictures those are a great depiction of what we're facing. So as Brian has described, we're seeking to build a buried pin pier retaining wall to protect the building against the collapse of the adjacent bluff. The wall is going to be fully buried, not visible from the road, not visible from the ocean. There will be the patios for the first floor condominiums will basically be sitting over atop the wall. In preparing the design, we worked to keep the city, the Coastal Commission informed of the plans, and we revised them now to address every point that was brought up both by the city planning department, the city's consultant, and all the points that were brought up by the Coastal Commission. And as noted in the geotechnical reports, our building is considered to be in imminent danger from a bluff collapse. And you can see, just how close that bluff is to the building. We're one or two big collapses away from, basically having compromised the safety of the building. You might ask, if the bluff collapse happened, the bluff collapse that initiated our actions took place in 2023, why are we here in 2025, not last year or the year before? And I wrote a letter to the planning department a while back explaining, what was going on and why that was happening. I'll just summarize by saying it's been a long and difficult process just to get here now. We had to work through the availability of multiple consultants. We had to consider different design alternatives. We had to select a contractor. We had to deal with personnel issues and injuries that forced us to swap people out on the project team. We had to raise funds from all of our homeowners. That necessitated special balloting and voting, and it was quite an exercise. And we had initially applied for an emergency CDP, but were redirected into the regular CDP process due to the timing and the complexity of the project. You can see it is quite a big project. But along the way, we've worked to keep the city and the Coastal Commission informed of what we're doing. I've spoken with Brian many times, and with Kiana Ford from the Coastal Commission as well. And we've also spoken with our neighbors about what we're planning to do, the neighbor who owns the property where all of that erosion is taking place. One of the complications we have is that neighbor, as a condition of getting the building permit for their property, has a deed restriction that does not allow them to armor the cliff or do anything to erode, mitigate erosion on their property. And you can see that the erosion is actually threatening our building. You know, their building is quite safe, but our building is now in imminent danger. And the deed restriction actually noted that when it was placed, that it was going to endanger our building, and it was going to endanger the neighbor on the other side as well. But anyway, that deed restriction is in place, and it makes finding a long-term solution very complicated because that bluff face is not our property. And it won't be our property until it moves another 8 feet closer to our building. So yeah, we'll be back at some point in time to ask for some help with that. But in any case, we've really worked hard to try to make this, as clean a plan as possible, to try to address every concern that's been brought up, and to try to stay in sync with everybody along the way. So, basically, just in summary, I mean, for us, it is imperative that we get this wall built and preserve the safety of our building because we're just in big danger right now.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your comments. Any comments from the public at large?
I'm another resident of this building. I bought this building last year in September, October. And when I went into the living room, I just saw the view and said, wow, this is amazing. I did a little bit of due diligence. I understood that there was a wall being built, and that gave me some degree of reassurance. It's only later on that I understand the complexity of what my neighbor had committed to in terms of not building a seawall. And this seems to be the best option which is available right now. And just as John said, we really would look to this commission to help us get approval and get at least this wall, pin pier wall built, and maybe down the road, if we're able to hold the sea back, then we can visit the seawall as things become better politically.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments from the public? Okay, hearing none, let's bring it back for deliberation. Any comments, commissioners? No, I don't know. This is a well thought out concept, and I know you've been working with staff on this for quite a while. I appreciate your patience in this one. We hope. So now we'll need a motion on this item.
I'd like to make a motion to approve application 250231 and approve the project based on recommendations, conditions, and findings for approval.
I'll second.
Okay, can we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Howard?
Yes.
Commissioner Q?
Aye.
Chair Esty?
Aye. Okay, congratulations, thank you. Item number 7 now is the director's report.
Okay, I have a number of items for you. So Thank you. I wanted to inform you that at the next city council meeting next week, we'll have a new appointment for our new planning commissioner. So we'll be back to 5. In the theme of tonight's meeting, we've talked a lot about coastal erosion, and I don't think we've ever had a night of 4 applications tied to this other than right after the big storms and the emergency permits. So a few things that are coming up. One is the Cliff Drive, as I announced earlier, a community meeting on August 12th, 6 p.m. in our community room, and that's for the Cliff Drive Resiliency Project. Looking forward, it's really time for us to get into climate adaptation. So we have applied recently, Public Works applied for a climate adaptation planning grant. And so I'll be reporting back, but the first step to that is to do a sea level rise study. And then so that's more on the Public Works side, having that study done. And then following that will be a planning process for to put together a climate adaptation plan. And that is a requirement of the state of California. So we have a deadline to meet on that. It's quite a few years out, so we've got some time to work on this. But that will be, I think Public Works will be working on the actual study in the next year. And then I think in 26, 27, later in 26, 27, you'll start to see it move into our department for that climate adaptation planning. And tonight was a good reason for us to get this rolling. At the August 21st City Council meeting, I think there'll also be an update on that Cliff Drive Resiliency Project, as well as I'm hoping the state will work out for a mall update. So I'll keep you posted, but I'm planning at this point starting to do a kickoff for that. We've got some zoning updates to do for the mall within this year, and it's starting to get late. So talking about a possible request for proposals to do some updates there. And then in September at our Planning Commission meeting, I'll be bringing forth those LCP and LUP updates that are tied back to that Cliff Drive Resiliency Project. And then a couple of changes to our department. You may have seen in the staff report the reference to Building, Planning, and Economic Development Department. We're going to shorten that to Community and Economic Development Department because it's very long. And with that, the City Council during their budget directed that change, as well as provided some funding towards a third party to assess with just different challenges we have with economic development with certain sites, and to have someone that we can reach out to help just make for the better, to improve those sites and bring in new businesses. And another change that is occurring within our department is that our senior planner, Brian Freilich, has been offered a great opportunity and will be moving on. So this is his last Planning Commission meeting. Brian, I can't say enough good things about. It's been a really good run with him in our department, and the quality of work and the professionalism that he brings to our department. I think I hear comments from community members and applicants all the time. So you will be missed, and I appreciate all your hard work and dedication. So, nice job.
I would definitely echo those comments, Brian. It's been great to be working with you, and I agree, very professional handling of cases like we just talked about.
Brian, congratulations. Very happy for you.
And that wraps up my director's report.
Yeah, well, thank you. I mean, it's a bit of a, kind of a happy, sad thing to be moving on. I really enjoyed working at Capitola, and will always be grateful to Katie for the opportunity to work here. And we've been maybe wrapping up a little bit shorter than I intended, but sometimes opportunities come along and you got to take them. But I've loved working with the commission, the community, and proud to serve Capitola.
Thank you for your service. Okay, and with that, we will adjourn to the next regularly scheduled meeting, which is August 21st at 6 o'clock. Thank you all.